The crowd was buzzing with excitement as the next contestant was announced on America's Got Talent. The stage lights dimmed, and a small figure stepped out from behind the curtain. It was a young Filipino boy, no more than 12, holding a silver microphone tightly in his small hands. His outfit caught everyone's eye, a white sequined jacket with golden trims, black pants, and shoes polished to perfection. His slicked back hair shimmered under the spotlight, giving him the faint aura of a young Elvis Presley. The audience giggled softly, not out of mockery but amusement. It wasn't every day they saw a kid dressed like the king of rock and roll. As he walked toward the center of the stage, the boy's nervousness showed. His shoulders tensed, his hands trembled slightly, and he kept glancing toward the judges' table. The massive arena seemed to swallow him whole. Thousands of faces stared at him, waiting to see what this little boy could possibly do. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Sofia Vergara smiled warmly, trying to ease his nerves. Heidi Klum gave him an encouraging nod, while Howie Mandel offered a thumbs up. The host, standing backstage, whispered, "You've got this, kid." The boy took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and spoke into the microphone. His voice was soft, almost shaking at first. "Hello, my name is Miguel," he said, his Filipino accent clear but gentle. "I'm going to sing one of my favorite songs, Elvis Presley's Can't Help Falling in Love." The audience reacted with polite applause, though a few chuckles could be heard. Elvis, sung by a 12-year-old. No one quite knew what to expect. The music started, that iconic soft melody of the piano and strings. The boy closed his eyes for a moment, finding courage somewhere deep within. And then, he sang. The first note that came out stunned everyone. It wasn't a childish voice, thin or shaky, it was rich, smooth, and deeply emotional. The tone carried a mature warmth, the same romantic depth that made Elvis unforgettable. The audience fell silent almost instantly. Some people even leaned forward, as if to be closer to the sound. His eyes opened, and a transformation began. The nervous child from seconds ago disappeared. In his place stood a confident young performer, his body swaying gently with the rhythm. Every note he sang seemed to float through the air, filling the vast hall with nostalgia. He didn't just mimic Elvis, he felt every lyric, every emotion. His expression softened during the verses, then glowed with sincerity during the chorus. Simon Cowell's eyebrows lifted slightly. He leaned forward, clearly caught off guard. The other judges exchanged glances. This wasn't just talent, this was something rare. The boy's voice carried the magic of the past, yet it felt alive in the present. The spotlight reflected in his eyes, making him look almost ethereal, like the spirit of Elvis was watching through him. By the time he reached the final line, "Take my hand, take my whole life too," the audience had stopped breathing. The last note lingered in the air, pure and hauntingly beautiful. When silence finally gave way, the theater erupted into applause, cheers, and even tears. The boy stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed, his heart pounding. He had just made history without even realizing it. As the applause from the first notes faded into quiet admiration, the young Filipino boy stood taller on the America's Got Talent stage. The music continued to flow, and with every passing second, he seemed to grow more confident. The nervous child who had stepped onto the stage moments ago was gone. In his place stood a performer with the grace and charm of someone far beyond his years. His deep, soulful tone wrapped around each lyric like velvet, capturing the spirit of Elvis Presley without ever trying to imitate him. It wasn't just a performance, it was as if the boy had unlocked something timeless inside himself, a piece of history reborn through music. The lighting technician must have felt it too, because the stage lights slowly shifted to a warm golden hue, bathing him in a soft glow that made the scene feel almost dreamlike. His sequined jacket sparkled as he swayed gently to the rhythm, his small hand gripping the microphone stand the way Elvis once did. The audience watched in awe, some with wide eyes, others with hands over their mouths in disbelief. They couldn't quite process what was happening before them. How could this young boy sound so much like Elvis, not just in tone but in soul? Midway through the song, his voice grew stronger, fuller, and more confident. He tilted his head slightly and gave a charming half smile, the same smile fans had adored in Elvis decades ago. A few older members of the audience were visibly emotional. One elderly woman clutched her chest and whispered, "It's like hearing him again." A man in the front row closed his eyes, nodding slowly to the rhythm, as if reliving his youth through every note. The judges, too, were visibly moved. Sofia Vergara placed a hand over her heart. Heidi Klum mouthed, "Wow," while Howie Mandel leaned closer to the edge of the table. But it was Simon Cowell's reaction that said the most. Known for his sharp criticism and impossible standards, Simon was unusually silent. His eyes narrowed, but not in disapproval. He was studying, absorbing, almost trying to make sense of what he was witnessing. The boy hit a powerful high note, one that echoed through the theater like lightning, and Simon's usual poker face broke. His lips curled into a faint smile, the kind that comes only when something truly rare happens. As the instrumental break played, the boy began to move more freely, stepping away from the microphone stand. He pointed gently toward the audience, his hips swaying just slightly, and the crowd roared in recognition. It was an unintentional homage to Elvis's iconic stage moves, but done with such innocence that it felt pure, not performative. In that moment, the entire arena seemed to breathe as one. The final chorus came, and the boy poured his entire heart into it. The tone of his voice carried both power and tenderness, the unmistakable blend that made Elvis a legend. The golden lights brightened until it looked like the stage itself was glowing. For a fleeting second, it felt as if the king of rock and roll was back, not in body, but in spirit, alive through this boy's voice. When the last note rang out, there was a heartbeat of silence, the kind that comes only when people are too overwhelmed to react. Then, as if a dam had broken, the entire audience leapt to their feet. Cheers, whistles, and applause filled the air. Some were shouting, "Encore!" while others simply wiped their tears. Cameras zoomed in on the boy's smiling face, a mixture of relief, pride, and disbelief. He had not just sung a song, he had brought an icon back to life. It wasn't just a performance anymore, it was history repeating itself, in the most beautiful way imaginable. As the final echoes of the song faded, the young Filipino boy stood still on stage, breathing heavily, his tiny chest rising and falling beneath the glittering white jacket. The applause grew louder, swelling into a thunderous standing ovation that filled the vast theater. The lights brightened slightly, bathing him in a halo-like glow as if acknowledging that something extraordinary had just happened. The boy smiled nervously, still trying to comprehend what he had done. His eyes glistened, overwhelmed by the love and energy radiating from the crowd. For a moment, it was as if time itself had stopped. The spirit of Elvis Presley had come alive again, and everyone in the room felt it. Simon Cowell sat perfectly still, his hand resting under his chin, his eyes fixed on the stage. He didn't speak right away, which made the moment even more intense. The boy's lips trembled as he waited, unsure of what Simon might say. The other judges were already clapping with delight. Sofia Vergara looked teary-eyed, Heidi Klum smiled widely, and Howie Mandel gave a double thumbs up. The audience's cheers began to settle, and all eyes turned toward Simon. The silence stretched long enough to make the boy's heart race. Finally, Simon leaned forward, a soft smile forming on his face, rare, genuine, and full of emotion. He took a breath, his voice calm but filled with sincerity. "Kid," he began, "I've seen thousands of performers come through those doors, and I've heard many people try to sing Elvis Presley. But what you just did," he paused, looking down for a moment, then back up at the boy. "You didn't imitate him, you channeled him, you made us feel like Elvis lives again." The audience erupted in cheers, even louder this time. The boy's eyes widened in disbelief. Simon's words were like gold, a validation most artists dream of hearing. The young performer covered his face with both hands, overwhelmed with emotion, and then laughed shyly when the crowd began chanting his name. "Miguel, Miguel, Miguel," echoed across the theater, the sound bouncing from wall to wall. Sofia Vergara leaned into her microphone and said, "You are such a special little boy. That was not just singing, that was magic." Heidi Klum nodded in agreement, adding, "You have an old soul, Miguel. It's like you brought the king back for one more song." Howie Mandel smiled warmly and said, "You didn't just perform, you made everyone here believe in music again." Miguel's small voice trembled as he whispered, "Thank you so much," and the crowd cheered once more. Simon pressed his buzzer, and a bright golden confetti explosion filled the stage. Miguel gasped in shock as golden pieces of paper fluttered down around him, sticking to his hair and jacket. The iconic golden buzzer moment had arrived. the sign that Simon himself believed the boy had something truly once in a lifetime. The host rushed onto the stage, hugging Miguel tightly as the audience rose again for a second standing ovation. Cameras zoomed in on Simon, who was clapping softly, still smiling, a look rarely seen on his face. "Remember this moment," Simon said, his voice gentle but firm. "Because the world will remember you for it." As the camera panned out, capturing the boy standing under the shower of gold, smiling through tears, the screen froze for a moment, and the headline appeared across social media within hours: "Elvis lives again, thanks to this Filipino wonder." Millions of people around the world would soon watch the clip, feeling the same thing everyone in that room had felt: that for one magical night, the king of rock and roll had returned, through the voice of a boy who simply believed.